want to tell you about a woman I once knew who lost everything in a single week. Her husband left. Her bank account was emptied. Her closest friend betrayed a confidence so deeply personal it shattered her trust in everyone. And on the 7th day, she received a letter saying her childhood home would be foreclosed. She came to me with eyes that had forgotten how to hope. She sat in my parlor, hands trembling, and said words I will never forget. "Mrs. Shinn, even God has turned his face from me." I looked at her, and I knew that what I was about to tell her would sound absolutely mad given her circumstances, but I said it anyway because truth doesn't wait for convenient moments. "Darling," I said, "this is not God turning away from you. This is the universe clearing out everything false so something magnificently true can finally arrive." She stared at me as if I had suggested she was standing in sunshine while drenched in rain. But here is what I know to be true, what I have seen proven again and again in my years, working with the invisible laws that govern our visible world. The moment when everything appears to be against you is often the exact moment when everything is actually conspiring in your favor. You just cannot see it yet because you are looking with physical eyes instead of spiritual vision. And today I am going to teach you the specific words, the actual statements, the precise declarations that will shift your circumstances from the inside out. Not someday, not when conditions improve, right now, in the midst of your storm, because I have discovered something remarkable. There are certain phrases that act as keys. They unlock doors in consciousness that most people don't even know exist. And when you speak these words with understanding, with feeling, with that particular quality of faith that expects results, the entire universe must rearrange itself to match your statement. This is not poetry, this is law, invisible law, yes, but more reliable than gravity. The woman I mentioned, within 3 months, she had met and married a man who cherished her in ways her first husband never could. The money she lost revealed an embezzlement that would have destroyed her completely if it had continued. The friend who betrayed her unknowingly freed her from a toxic dynamic, and that childhood home, letting it go, opened the door to a new life she had been too afraid to choose. But none of this could have happened if she had continued speaking the language of defeat. She had to learn a new vocabulary, the vocabulary of truth. And that is precisely what I am about to teach you. So if you are watching this because your back is against the wall, because the diagnosis came back grim, because the relationship ended, because the money ran out, because you have prayed and heaven seems silent, I want you to know you are exactly where you need to be to hear what I am about to share. Your extremity is God's opportunity, and this moment, this very moment, is pregnant with possibility you cannot yet perceive. Now let me take you deeper into how this actually works, because understanding the mechanism matters. You see, most people believe that their words are simply descriptions of reality. They think they look at their circumstances and then report what they see like a journalist documenting facts. But I have discovered something that changes everything. Your words are not reporters, they are creators. They are not describing your world, they are prescribing it. They are writing the script that your life will follow. Every thought you think, every word you speak is a demand made upon the universal substance that surrounds you. And the universe is magnificently obedient. It says yes to whatever you declare with conviction. It does not argue. It does not judge. It simply produces in your outer world whatever you have impressed upon your inner world. This is why two people can experience the same challenging circumstances, and one emerges transformed while the other remains trapped. The difference is not in what happened to them. The difference is in what they said while it was happening. One person declares defeat and gets more defeat. Another declares transformation and gets transformation. Same circumstance, different declaration, different result. I learned this lesson the hard way through my own heartbreak and confusion. There was a time when my marriage was crumbling, when my finances were in chaos, when I felt like a complete failure at this thing called life. And I did what most people do. I talked about my problems constantly. I described them in vivid detail to anyone who would listen. I rehearsed my grievances like lines in a terrible play. And you know what happened. My problems got bigger, more detailed, more entrenched because I was watering them with my attention and feeding them with my words. Then one day, in a moment of desperation so complete, I had nowhere left to turn. I stumbled upon an ancient truth that mystics have known forever. There is a power in you that is greater than any circumstance around you, and that power is activated by your word. Not wishful thinking, not positive affirmations that you don't believe, but statements of spiritual truth spoken with the understanding that they are already fact in the invisible realm and must therefore become fact in the visible realm. This changed everything for me, and it will change everything for you. I used to wake up dreading my finances. There was this gnaw in my stomach every morning, this heaviness that colored everything I did. I'd check my bank account with fear. I'd open bills with trembling hands, and all the while I was affirming that fear with every thought, every word, every anxious conversation. I can't afford this. Money is so tight. I'm always broke. I was speaking my reality into existence. But I didn't know it yet. Then one morning, I decided to try something radical. Instead of rehearsing my lack, I began to speak as if my good was already on its way. Not someday, not if I got lucky, but now in the invisible realm where all things exist before they take form. My supply is endless and immediate. Every need is met before I even ask. At first, it felt absurd. My logical mind screamed that I was lying to myself, but I kept going. I spoke it when I woke up. I spoke it when fear crept in. I spoke it when the bills came, and here's what happened. Within 3 weeks, unexpected money began flowing to me from directions I never anticipated. An old debt someone repaid that I'd written off years ago. A freelance opportunity that fell into my lap. A refund I'd forgotten about. None of it was lottery-winning dramatic, but all of it was perfectly timed, perfectly provided. This is what Florence Shinn understood that most people miss. We are not begging an unwilling universe to give us scraps. We are claiming what is already ours in divine mind. There is no lack in spirit. There is no shortage in the invisible realm. Every good thing exists there in infinite supply, waiting only for our recognition, our acceptance, our spoken word to bring it into form. You are not trying to create something from nothing. You are giving form to what already is. This is why worry and anxiety are not just unpleasant. They are acts of creation in the wrong direction. When you sit and rehearse your fears, when you imagine worst-case scenarios, when you speak of lack and limitation, you are not being realistic or preparing yourself. You are building those very conditions in the invisible realm. You are actually praying for what you don't want. I knew a woman who would say constantly, "I just know something terrible is going to happen." And she said it so often with such conviction that eventually something did happen. Her greatest fear materialized. She came to me in tears asking why God had punished her. But God hadn't punished her. She had punished herself. She had given form to her fears through the relentless power of her spoken word and her imagination. The universe doesn't judge the content of your thoughts as good or bad. It simply says yes. It's like a cosmic photocopier. It reproduces exactly what you place before it. If you place fear, you get circumstances that match that fear. If you place faith, You get circumstances that match that faith. The choice always is yours. Now, here's where it gets truly empowering. You can change your life by changing your word. Not overnight, perhaps, but certainly and definitely. Every time you speak a word of abundance instead of lack, you shift something in the invisible. Every time you declare, I am guided instead of, I'm so confused, you open a channel for guidance to reach you. Every time you say something wonderful is happening to me today, instead of nothing ever works out, you literally redirect the creative forces of the universe. I taught my students to become vigilant about their words, to listen to themselves speak. Most people have no idea how negatively they talk. They say things like, I'm broke, I can't afford it, I'm so unlucky, nobody appreciates me, I always get sick this time of year. These are not harmless observations. These are commands to the universe, and the universe is obedient. It will prove you right every single time. The moment you say, I can't afford it, you slam the door on prosperity. The moment you say, I'm so tired, you drain yourself of energy. The moment you declare, nobody loves me, you repel affection from every direction. You see, your words don't just describe your reality, they prescribe it. They're writing the prescription that life will fill. I once knew a woman who would say every morning, I just know something bad is going to happen today. And you know what? She was never disappointed. A flat tire, a rude clerk, a spilled coffee, small disasters followed her like loyal pets. But here's what fascinated me. When I suggested she change her morning declaration, she resisted. She actually defended her right to expect the worst. But I'm just being realistic, she protested. I'm protecting myself from disappointment. Do you see the trap? We think negative expectation is a form of protection, a way to cushion the blow, but it's actually an invitation. It's like leaving your front door open and wondering why strangers keep walking in. You cannot protect yourself into prosperity. You cannot fear your way into joy. You cannot doubt your way into success. The universe doesn't hear your explanations or your justifications. It doesn't care about your very reasonable reasons for worry. It only hears the declaration. It only responds to the claim. When you say, I never have enough money, the universe doesn't hear because my job doesn't pay well or because the economy is bad. It just hears I never have enough money and says your wish is my command. This is why monitoring your speech is not optional. It's essential. Every word is a seed, and you're planting a garden whether you realize it or not. The question is, what kind of harvest do you want? Because you're going to reap exactly what you've sown. Now, I want to talk about something that might make you uncomfortable at first, but stay with me. It's about forgiveness, and I don't mean the surface-level kind where you grit your teeth and say, I forgive you, while still replaying the hurt in your mind like a broken record. Real forgiveness, the kind that sets you free, is a spiritual eraser. It wipes the slate clean, not for them, for you. See, every time you hold on to resentment, every time you rehearse what someone did to you, you're sending that negative energy right back into your own experience. You're literally recreating the pain over and over again. You become a prisoner in a cell where you're both the inmate and the guard. I've seen people hold grudges for decades, 20, 30 years, carrying around bitterness like a badge of honor. And what does it do? It poisons everything they touch. Their relationships crumble, their health deteriorates. Opportunities pass them by because they're so focused on what happened back then that they can't see what's possible right now. Here's the truth they don't want to hear. That person who wronged you, they've probably moved on. They're living their life while you're still giving them free rent in your head, letting them control your emotions, your peace, your future. Forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying, I refuse to let this define my life anymore. And watch what happens when you truly forgive. Not just speak the words, but feel it in your bones. Release it from your heart. Suddenly, that person either transforms in front of your eyes or they simply fade from your experience. The universe rearranges itself around your new vibration. I've witnessed miracles through forgiveness, estranged family members reconciling after years of silence, business partnerships restored, health conditions improving seemingly overnight because all that energy you were using to maintain the grudge. It floods back into your life as pure creative force. All that vitality that was locked up in resentment, suddenly available to build the life you actually want. I'm going to tell you something that might sound impossible, but I've seen it happen too many times to doubt it. When you truly release a grudge, opportunities appear, not because the universe is rewarding you, but because you're finally energetically available to receive them. There was a woman who held bitterness toward a former business partner for 7 years. 7 years. She'd rehearse what she'd say if she ever saw him again. She'd check his social media to fuel her sense of being wronged. She'd tell anyone who would listen about the injustice she'd suffered. Her business stagnant, same income year after year. Same small circle of clients. She couldn't understand why she couldn't break through to the next level. Then one day, exhausted by her own story, she decided to release it. Not for him, for herself. She wrote a letter, never sent it, where she acknowledged her own part in what happened. Where she blessed his success instead of resenting it. Where she finally let the story go. Within 3 months, her income doubled. A new partnership opportunity came out of nowhere. The creativity she thought she'd lost, it came flooding back. Coincidence, maybe, but I've seen this pattern too many times. When you stop being energetically entangled with the past, you become magnetically available to the future. Here's what's happening on a deeper level. Every grudge is an invisible agreement. You're agreeing to stay connected to that person, that situation, that wound. You're signing a contract that says, I will carry this forever. Forgiveness is you tearing up that contract. It's you saying, I release you from the obligation to make this right. I release myself from the prison of waiting for an apology that may never come. I take back my energy, my time, my creative force. This story no longer defines me, and here's the radical part. You don't need their participation to do this. You don't need their apology, their acknowledgement, their understanding. You can't unilaterally declare your freedom. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This isn't pretending the harm didn't happen. It's refusing to let what happened continue happening in your present moment. Because every time you rehearse the grievance, it happens again. Every time you tell the story with that old heat, you re-traumatize yourself. The past event happened once, but you've been repeating it thousands of times in your mind. Forgiveness is deciding the reruns stop today. You see, unforgiveness is the most exhausting burden you can carry. I've watched people age 10 years trying to hold on to a grudge that weighs nothing except in their hearts. They think they're punishing the other person, but they're the ones who can't sleep at night. They're the ones whose joy has been stolen, whose peace has been replaced with bitterness. There's tremendous power in the simple statement, I release you, not because what happened was okay, not because you're condoning anything, but because you're choosing freedom over imprisonment. You're saying, I will not give you rent, free space in my mind anymore. I will not let what you did define the rest of my story. I remember a woman who came to me, eaten alive by resentment toward her sister over an inheritance dispute. Every conversation we had circled back to this injustice. Every prayer she attempted was contaminated with anger. Her body was manifesting the stress, migraines, digestive issues, insomnia. I finally said to her, you're spending your inheritance of peace trying to collect a debt your sister may never pay. That hit her. She realized she was bankrupt in every way that mattered, all while obsessing over money that was already spent. The next week, She wrote a letter not to send, but to release. She poured out everything, then burned it and scattered the ashes. Within days, her headaches lessened. Within a month, she had a business opportunity that brought in more than the inheritance ever was. The universe cannot deliver your good when your hands are clenched in fists. Forgiveness is how you break generational curses. Every family has them. Patterns of rage, abandonment, addiction, scarcity. They get passed down like heirlooms nobody wanted. But you can be the one who stops the cycle. You can say, "This ends with me. I will not pass this poison to my children." And when you make that decision, truly make it, you will feel a weight lift from your shoulders that you didn't even know you were carrying. You don't need their validation anymore. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to suddenly become different people. You simply need to reclaim your power and walk forward into your own life. Let me give you something practical, because I know some of you are thinking this sounds beautiful, but how do I actually do this? Here's what works. You start treating your mind like a garden. Every thought is a seed. Every word you speak is water and sunlight to those seeds. If someone planted weeds in your garden years ago, you don't spend your life watering those weeds and wondering why nothing beautiful grows. You pull them out, you plant new seeds, you tend to what you actually want to flourish. When a memory surfaces, a cruel word, a moment of rejection, a wound that still aches you, don't push it away. You acknowledge it. You say, "Yes, that happened. It was painful, but it does not define what happens next." Then you replace it. You speak a new truth. I am worthy of love. I am capable of success. I am healing every single day. This isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. This is about refusing to let the past write the script for your future. I've watched people transform their entire lives with this practice. A woman who was told she was stupid every day of her childhood became a successful entrepreneur. A man who grew up with violence became the gentlest father I've ever known. A young person who never heard "I love you now" speaks those words freely and means them deeply. The pattern can be broken. The curse can be lifted, but only by you, only by your decision, only by your commitment to a different way. And here's something they don't tell you. When you heal yourself, you heal backwards and forwards through time. You heal the child you were. You heal the parent they were, even if they never do the work themselves. And you heal the children who will come after you, because they will never have to carry what you carried. Your healing becomes their inheritance. Your freedom becomes their birthright. You become the pattern breaker, the chain-shattering, cycle-ending ancestor your lineage has been waiting for. And that is not a small thing. That is not a side quest. That is sacred work. I've watched people minimize their own healing journey. "Oh, I'm just working on myself." There is no just about it. You are rewiring centuries of conditioning. You are choosing consciousness where there was only compulsion. You are bringing light into corners that have been dark for generations. Every time you pause before reacting, you are creating new neural pathways, not just in your brain, but in the collective consciousness of your family line. Every time you speak a boundary instead of swallowing your truth, you are giving permission to everyone connected to you to do the same. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you are planting seeds in soil that has known only harshness. And here's what nobody tells you about generational healing. It works backward and forward simultaneously. Yes, you free the children who come after you, but you also free the child you were, the one who absorbed patterns they were too young to question, the one who learned to carry weight that was never theirs to hold. When you heal yourself, you reach back through time and wrap your arms around that younger version of you and whisper, "You are not the problem. You are never the problem, and I am here now doing what no one could do for you then. I am choosing differently. I am breaking what tried to break us. You cannot change what happened, but you can change what it means. You can rewrite the story you've been telling yourself about who you are because of what happened. You can take the same events and extract different lessons, and that reinterpretation is not denial. It is alchemy. You see, the difference between someone who stays imprisoned by their past, and someone who uses it as a launchpad is not circumstances. It is interpretation. Two people can go through nearly identical experiences and emerge as completely different human beings. One becomes bitter, cynical, closed. The other becomes compassionate, wise, open. The events were the same. The meaning assigned was not. I knew a woman who lost her business during a recession. Everything she'd built over 15 years gone. For months, she told herself the story. I'm a failure. I can't be trusted with success. The universe doesn't want me to prosper. And under the weight of that story, she could barely get out of bed. Then one day, something shifted. She began to tell a different story about the exact same facts. I was being redirected. That business had become my entire identity, and I'd lost myself in it. This loss cracked me open so I could discover who I really am beneath the doing. Within a year, she'd started a completely different venture, one aligned with her actual passions, not just what she thought she should do. She didn't just rebuild, she transformed. The facts of her bankruptcy didn't change, but the story she carried changed everything. This is your creative power. You are not just a recorder of history. You are the narrator, the editor, the one who decides what each chapter means. And when you change the narration, you change the trajectory. Your past loses its power to dictate your future the moment you stop letting it write your script. Now, here's what often happens when people start doing this inner work. They get afraid. They think, if I let go of my old story, if I forgive, if I reinterpret what hurt me, won't I be vulnerable again? Won't I forget the lesson? Won't I be foolish? But here's the truth. Wisdom without bitterness is the goal. You can learn discernment without carrying resentment. You can set boundaries without building walls. The universe doesn't ask you to close your heart to stay safe. It asks you to keep your heart open while choosing wisely where to direct your love. I've seen people who became so guarded after betrayal that they couldn't recognize genuine affection when it arrived. They treated every kindness with suspicion, interrogated every gesture, and ultimately pushed away the very blessings they'd been affirming. That's not wisdom. That's fear wearing a disguise. True discernment says, I see who you are through your actions. I trust patterns, not promises. And I honor myself enough to walk away when love becomes labor. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to justify it. You simply redirect your energy toward those who meet you with the same integrity you offer. I remember a woman who told me, everyone I've ever loved has disappointed me. When I asked her to describe these relationships, a pattern emerged immediately. She repeatedly chose people who explicitly told her they weren't available emotionally, practically, spiritually. Then she suffered when they behaved exactly as they'd warned her they would. She wasn't a victim of cruel fate. She was addicted to the project of transformation. She believed her love could change people, that her devotion would finally make her worthy of being chosen. The awakening came when she realized you cannot be a priority to someone who hasn't made themselves a priority. You cannot receive emotional availability from someone who has none to give. When she finally affirmed, I attract people who are as ready for love as I am, everything shifted. The desperate, unavailable types stopped appearing. In their place came individuals who had done their inner work, who knew their worth, who could offer presence instead of potential. Your affirmations aren't magic words that force reality to bend. They're frequencies that attune you to what already exists at that vibration. This is why you can affirm prosperity all day long while simultaneously checking your bank account with anxiety, complaining about prices, and treating money like it's scarce. The affirmation says abundance, but your frequency broadcasts lack, and frequency always wins. I watched a woman affirm, I am worthy of love every morning for 6 months while staying in a relationship where she was consistently disrespected. She wondered why the affirmation wasn't working. But it was working perfectly. It was revealing the gap between her words and her energetic truth. the moment she actually embodied that worthiness, not as a hope, but as a non-negotiable fact, she could no longer tolerate that relationship. She didn't leave because she finally manifested strength. She left because her frequency had shifted to a place where that dynamic could no longer exist. Your affirmations are meant to close the gap between who you say you are and who you're actually being. They're alignment tools, not acquisition tools. When you affirm, I am confident, you're not trying to convince the universe to make you confident. You're reminding yourself of a truth that fear has obscured. You're tuning your inner radio back to the station that was always playing. And here's what shifts when you understand this. You stop performing your affirmations and start living them. You stop saying, I am abundant while hoarding and start saying it while giving freely. You stop declaring, I am love, while criticizing yourself in the mirror and start speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you cherish. The universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your state, and your state is revealed not in what you say during your morning routine, but in what you do when no one's watching, how you speak to the waiter, how you react when plans change, whether you can receive a compliment without deflecting, whether you can sit in silence without reaching for distraction.